Is that the music? Is it the music?
You know what time it is.
It's that time, once again, for your favorite podcast of mine, the Flycast!
Yes, it is. Oops. I just turned my camera off. There we go. It is time indeed for the Flycast. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
I'm John. That's Steve.
Hello.
Together, we bring you the Flycast.
By our powers combined.
We are Captain Planet.
There you go.
Is that how that goes? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, welcome. Thanks for hanging out with us. If you are new around here, whether you're watching live on Twitch or watching on YouTube, listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever, thank you so much for hanging out with us. I'm John, that's Steve. We are just a couple of nerds who enjoy D&D, have a lot of DM experience between the two of us as well, and have a small little community here. People started asking questions. We were like, hey, why don't we just start a podcast where we talk about this stuff and answer questions and just do things. So that's what we do. Been doing this for a little while now. It's fun. We normally have a topic we talk about and then just kind of like go from there, take questions on the back end, all sorts of fun. So we're going to go ahead and just kind of dive on in here. This is, oh, you got Van Nurten's Guide to Ravenloft, huh? Nice. Of course you do. Of course you do.
I couldn't help it. I mean, I went to there's a local game store here in Seymour, and they had the really good cover.
Yeah, the fun one.
Yeah, I mean, it's my girl on there, man. It's my girl.
Yeah, I don't have Candlekeep yet either, so I want that.
I don't either. I was looking at that one. I was like, I thought about that, but I was like, man, I can't go wrong with this one.
And then they've announced their next two. There's an adventure book coming out that's gonna have it has to deal with like the Feywild and stuff, which could be fun.
Yep.
But
Tracy's
then there's
already eyeballed it.
Yeah, and then they're coming out with another a setting book that's another one of these Magic the Gathering worlds. Good on Wizards of the Coast for like combining their stuff and whatnot, but I just don't care about these Magic worlds that they keep making books.
Yeah, I mean,
but
I've never been a huge Magic the Gathering fan. Like somebody's like, "How can you like D&D and not Magic?" I'm like, "Easy, because I don't like card games."
Such different things. Yeah,
they're so different. They're not like
just
same
because
thing to me.
Just because they're two fantasy properties does not make them the same whatsoever, right?
Right.
There's so much under that umbrella. It's not. I mean, you can have fun with it. I've played Magic before. It's fun, but there's no way I'm letting myself get sucked into it, right? It's just. Yeah, this is
you think our hobby's expensive?
Yeah, right.
Buying Magic cards.
Yeah,
you
just
get those
insane.
rare Magic cards. They are insane.
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
No.
Yeah, no, I want them to come out with another DM centric book again. That's not a setting book, but another. I don't know, like another Mordenkainen's or something, right? Where there's more monsters and I don't know, maybe even I don't know, something
more tools for your games equals more diversity.
But they will. They've been pretty good with coming out with stuff like this. Is going to be
they're consistent.
Candlekeep was this year too, so I think it's going to be 4 books this year that they come out with. So like that's. I can't really complain about that, right? Like, that's pretty nice. And then I know they're working on Dragonlance too now.
Oh, I know. That was just about right at what I was going to say. We're still waiting on Dragonlance. Because here's the thing. My next campaign is going to be Dragonlance, regardless.
Yeah.
So
you wanted to run that, so it makes sense.
You guys dodged the bullet on the first one when I gave you a choice. No, I want to do one up for me.
Right.
So, like, if it means I don't have to... convert AD&D to 5.
Yeah, I mean it'd be nice. It'd be nice to have stuff.
It's a lot of work.
Updated. Anyway, so that's our just random thoughts about what Wizards of the Coast has been coming out with. Has nothing to do with the topic for today, but hey, fun little bonus content there, I suppose. Let's go ahead and dive on into today's topic. Today we're going to be talking about house rules. just to kind of go over some of the house rules that we use, why people use house rules, the benefits, the drawbacks, all that fun stuff. Because, I think we both agree the 5e rule set is fantastic. There's a lot that it does
really
well.
like it.
And one of the things that it does super well is makes it really easy for you to just kind of throw in your own stuff. And even, I also really appreciate that in all the books, they're like, hey, you're the DM, you're running things, do whatever you want to. Like, if you don't like something, change it and move on. Like, so I think that's really nice, and it lends itself well to kind of just coming up with stuff that suits your table better, whether it's for, like, more realism or just things that make more sense or things that are just more fun. So, we'll go ahead and just kind of dive on in. We'll start talking about some of the house rules we use and why, and just kind of go from there. I'll just throw it on over to you. What is one of the what are some of the big house rules that you use? I know we use a lot of the same ones.
We use a lot of the same, but I was just trying to think about it, and I was like, I don't know if this is mainly a house rule or if this is just me, but like when I do world building and I do magic items, I kind of maybe this is just for me, but I kind of house rule it where if you're wanting +3 above, you gotta find that. You gotta find a quest. You as a player need to do some snooping, look for dungeons, stuff of that nature. Because I don't really care about gold in the game per se. Right. Because I know if you can have all the gold in the world, but there's only so much you can spend it on. So it's and that's not me being a douche. That's me going, well, these items aren't necessarily available in this area. You can get some pretty cool stuff. You might get lucky and find something really rare. But if you're wanting a Holy Avenger, you got a quest for that. You got to do stuff in the game to kind of do that. That's one of the big ones. For me, I think that's just a house rule for myself per se, because I know I like to give things away. I mean, and I think you do too. But
yeah,
that's part of the fun is seeing a player go, wow, that's cool, But just from experience, I've been known to give too much stuff away, and I need to gate it a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit. No, well, I mean, it's fun for me.
So. I think that's good. I think that's kind of more of like a world building thing, but it's a good thing for you to set as a DM, right? Like a lot of what we talk about is pretty DM centric. So as you're building your world and running your game, to kind of keep in mind the rarity of objects, and that is kind of house rule-y, right? Like the Dungeon Master's guide gives you a kind of recommendation about how expensive things should be and how abundant things should be.
I normally use that.
Honestly, I don't use the DMG at all. I use it started out as like a blog post that turned into a PDF called the Sane Magic Item Guide or something like that. If you just Google that, you'll find it. That's normally what I use, and then I kind of tweak things here and there, but the prices there for things are normally far more expensive, but that just makes sense, right? Because if you're like you said, don't care too much about gold. Yeah, you want to give away a lot of gold. The party at level 5 kills a young dragon who's on a hoard of gold. Well, it only makes sense that they get the 100,000 gold pieces that dragon's sitting on, but that that wand of magic missiles does not cost 500 gold like the DMG says. It costs 10 grand or something like that. Yeah, that starts to that balances things a little bit more. And I do think that is I don't know that's necessarily like a house rule. It's more of kind of a world building thing. I think that's definitely something that you do need to keep in mind when you're running your games. It's how rare and how expensive do things need to be, for sure. I think that's a good one.
Yeah, and I know we do that a little differently, but I think one of the things we do normally is, and I think we got this from Mercer, was that potions are a bonus action.
Yeah, and that's a big one. That's one I definitely wanted to bring up. Yeah, so for those of you who play in either of our games, you might not even know this, but according to rules as written, in order to take a potion, no matter where you declare said potion is, that is an object interaction, which is an action. It costs your full action to down that healing potion or whatever it is. I'll let you talk about that for a second. Why do you use that rule, and why do you think that that's
Like,
beneficial?
and again, that's something I actually got from you, because like for me, like, and you brought up a good point. It was like, it kind of sucks to burn your whole action on that, but it
Mhm.
also makes sense though that if you got it there, it's within reach. You're not necessarily drinking it all in that one turn, but thematically, you could just be like, "Whop!" It's like a
Mhm.
shot, and then you're like trying to take cover. You're shooting your bow. You're using your long sword on something. You're trying
Yeah.
to. You're basically going, "Ow, I'm bleeding out. I need this, but I still have to fight." It's like one of those things where somebody might like pop a pain pill mid battle, slap a
Right.
bandage on there in like a half a second. Trained soldiers or trained adventurers can do things quicker than, say, Farmer Johnson down the road with his hoe trying to attack a zombie.
Right.
It's we say this all the time, is that adventurers, like a level 1 adventurer, is way more powerful than a standard NPC.
Right.
So it only makes sense that player is going to be a little quicker on the draw
Mhm.
on certain things, and that's why we do that. So.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think even like I think that's a great point to bring up. A level 1 player, or like a level 1 character, is still like in the world is still a pretty heroic, pretty badass individual. A level 1 fighter will on average have like 3 times the amount of hit points just as a standard commoner will. They'll be able to do like 10 times the amount of damage in a turn as a standard commoner. They can wield weapons and don armor that a commoner would have no idea what to do with. So like, and obviously you get just way more powerful from that, but at level 1 even, you are special, you are heroic, you are the hero of the story. So it makes sense that you would have some abilities that a common person wouldn't. I like to do the potions as bonus actions for 2 reasons. First of all, the big reason is because it's more fun, right? I think that's the first thing you said. Nobody wants to waste their entire turn downing a healing potion, especially if you're in a fight where you just took 15 points of damage last round. So this round you drink a healing potion, roll bad, and regain 6 points of healing, and then next round you get hit for another 10. So you're like, why am I even bothering with this stupid thing, because it's not really doing much for me. So it's just more fun. Also, it makes sense to me, right? Like the whole object interaction being a full action makes sense when you're thinking of, okay, I've got all this stuff in my backpack. I'm for my object interaction, I want to tie this rope around this grappling hook and throw it on the roof. Okay, well that makes sense. I got to find the rope on my backpack, find my grappling hook, tie it together, throw it. Makes sense that that's going to take a while. Or like lighting a torch that's in my backpack, all that stuff. But if you thematically have a belt pouch with a small little vial like this in it, that's a healing potion, and you just grab that from your belt, pop the cork, and down it, that takes a whole action. Like that's your entire 6 seconds in combat. That's just ridiculous to me. It just doesn't make sense. It makes sense that you should be able to do it as a bonus action and, make your standard attack as well. So it's more fun for the player, plus it just makes sense to me. And, as with any house rule that has to do with like combat and such, if a player can do it, so can the bad guys. So if you're like, well, that makes things unbalanced, well then give your stupid wizard bad guy 3 health potions too. Like that's fine, whatever, it works. So that's kind of why we do those ones. And that's one of the big ones for me is the potions as bonus actions. There's definitely a lot of other ones though that we've kind of played around with.
I like the one that we do like with evocation spells, like because like there was one time and this is your first campaign, but like we didn't have a healer, and I was a wizard because I the cleric just was not fun. Well, I found a scroll of healing word, and we looked at it, and we're like, "Holy shit! This says evocation." Like, I like the house rule where if you find the scroll and you're a caster, if you studied enough, you could learn it. Like, it's not, but it has to be like something that's a low level. Like, you can't be casting the spell heal as a wizard, but like something like small, like a healing word. I don't know. That's just me. But
No, that's
like
fine. We both are going to do this differently, actually, I think.
yeah, so like if it's like for me, like, and I haven't really had it come up much because I haven't had too many people ask it. But I
Mm-hmm.
remember Trick or Jordan asking me if he could buy scrolls like cantrips for his warlock, and traditionally I didn't think that was like something they could do. But eventually I was like, you know what, fine, it's not a huge deal to me. I went ahead and made a decision, and I'm okay with it if the warlock has money to buy some extra cantrips, and let's be honest, they're not super strong, but it gives some
Right.
more flavor to his
Right.
character because his character thinks he's a wizard. Then sure,
Right.
fine. You know, it's going to help us tell that story. We'll make that house rule not a huge deal, in my opinion. Now, there's some DMs who may be like, no, fuck that. But that's your prerogative. But for me, I was like, you know, we play the game for fun. It was fun flavor for him. I had to think about it. I was like, it's not really that busted. Fine. If you got the money, buy it. You know, like his thematically, his book will literally write the words of the spell in his book on its own. Like he doesn't do anything. It's just the flavor of his character. So that was pretty cool. Something we could house rule with that.
Yeah, what I do with spellcasting there, and I did this a little bit differently before, but now what my rule is that a wizard can first I'll talk about scrolls. Scrolls, I believe, rules as written, it has to be on your class's spell list in order to cast it from a scroll. I think I could be wrong.
Yeah.
But as far as scrolls, I will allow anybody to try and cast from a scroll. The only stipulation is if you are say you're a wizard, like a level 1 wizard, and the scroll is a level 3 spell, then you do need to make an intelligence check, DC 13, in order to cast that scroll, because it's a 3rd level spell. And you don't have access to 3rd level spells yet. Otherwise, I'll let you cast it. Don't really care. I will let a fighter cast a cleric spell from a scroll. I don't really care. I think that's what scrolls are for, right? They're, in my mind anyway, and in my world, and the way that I have it set up in my house rules and whatnot, is these scrolls are more or less one way that a wizard can make a lot of money, because the only ones who can write the scroll is a wizard who knows the spell. But they can go ahead and, for instance, write a spell of, or a scroll of, I don't know, a scroll of unseen servant, maybe, and sell that spell scroll to someone wealthy, and that wealthy person can then go ahead and cast unseen servant and have themselves a servant to clean up after them, even if they're not a wizard. They feel like paying that amount of money so that they can have a housekeeper for the day that they don't have to deal with. Just one example. So I will let anybody cast a spell from a scroll. And then as far as like wizards copying into spell books, I will let them copy any spell. Rules as written, it has to be a wizard spell. I couldn't care less. Your spell, your magic comes from studying. To me, if you find a spell, even if it's not normally an arcane spell, even if it's normally a divine spell, there is some sort of like scientific mumbo jumbo that you can do to learn that spell and copy it into your spell book. Makes sense to me. So that's kind of how I do that.
Well, I mean, if you look at the spell and like say you like in this, and I think we did this because Vac is an evocation wizard. Well, if you look at healing spells, you're evoking you're evoking something into the world. So even though like you're used to like making fireballs, in this case, you're evoking the action of someone's wounds mending.
Right.
So it's not necessarily, and I liked that just because the fact, again, it was an intelligence thing. Like doctors don't have magic; they're intelligent. They have to learn how to sew up your wounds, the suture, and all that stuff. So that's just something that I like. I like in your games.
Another magic one that I do is, and I'm pretty sure you do something similar, is it rules as written. If you cast a spell of 1st level or higher on your turn, then you cannot cast any other spell unless it's a cantrip on that turn.
Yeah.
So if you use your bonus action to cast Misty Step as a wizard, then you can use your action to cast Fire Bolt, but you cannot use your action to cast any spell of first level or higher. I understand why. I understand why, because magic casters, especially at higher levels, are already more powerful, like very powerful, but it's also a lot less fun, especially when you pair it with something like Misty Step, right? When you can cast a fireball and then Misty Step away or something along those lines. So what I do instead is I just make if you cast a spell of first level or higher, you can cast another spell, but it has to be at least one level lower than what you just cast. Especially that makes it more fun for a sorcerer with Quicken spell. Now, that can get out of hand if you don't have that stipulation of it being a lower spell, right? If they just dual cast Fireball, basically, that gets kind of crazy. But like if you require the spell still to be one level lower, then you don't really have that problem, and everyone gets to have fun. So that's what I do. It's more fun. You get to do a little bit more on your turn. You get to think more outside the box, but it still isn't like crazy overpowered.
Yeah, I like that one too, because like I think again, that's one of those things I took from you because I didn't know any better. And like normally I try to go rule of cool in most situations, but like I've seen so many streams where like even Mercer won't let them use another spell. It has to be like a cantrip or something like that. And I'm like, yeah, I guess I kind of get where you're coming from. That is the rule. But there's also plenty of times where he's done certain things that are house ruley that he'll do for himself too. So like again, it's a DM's prerogative. Like if you like one thing and another, like there's been times like there was a time I think I had an issue with the alert feed. Now I just don't think I give a fuck. But I was like I was like sick to death of people taking it, and I could never surprise them. Like, fuck this. And I've seen a couple like who's those other dungeon masters on YouTube? He doesn't allow them to have the alert feed, but I've since then just like, you know what? I don't care. I'm like, for a little bit I was house ruling it, and I was like, that's just taken away from a player. So I'm like, nah, we'll deal with it. I'll adjust. That kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean that's how I feel about that too.
I think one of the house rules that I do as well is, and this is just something for me, is like I'm a very story-centric guy, and it's hard for me to focus on every single detail. I do not give a flying fuck about your carrying capacity. Now, that being said, if you have 12 long swords on you, where are you going to put them?
Yeah.
Are you going to, and I think John made us do this once, is like we had to make like a makeshift like sled to put them all on, because like we couldn't all carry like 5 longswords into a town. I mean, think of it this way. You're rolling into a town in a fantasy medieval setting. You're armed to the teeth. Most people are going to look at you going like, are they going to kill us?
Right.
That kind of thing. So you kind of have to approach it from like, we're doing some trading and selling. So we've got all these scimitars from these goblins. But at that same point, I don't like to micromanage a player's carrying capacity.
Yeah,
it's just way too much for me.
I do pretty much the same thing with that. I know there's a couple of different ways to do encumbrance in rules as written. There's variant encumbrance and standard encumbrance, and they're both just incredibly convoluted to me. I think there's I think one of the two forms isn't that bad, but it's still just more annoying than anything. I normally stick with the what makes sense,
right?
Until you start to decide that, once the party decides that every single goblin that they kill, they're taking their crappy goblin scimitars and short bows, and they're trying to come into town with, like you're talking about, 15 short bows slung over their shoulder. Like, no, like you're not doing that. But
figure out a way to get them there.
Yeah. Until you get to like that level, I really don't care all that much. And then honestly, once you start like hoarding things like crazy, at some point you'll probably end up with a bag of holding, and then it won't matter. And I know online there are, like on Fantasy Grounds or whatever, there are those tools for encumbrance and whatnot. It can make that easier, and if that's something that you enjoy, then more power to you. I just find encumbrance incredibly obnoxious, especially Especially when, and I think this is the main reason that I have an issue with it. You can very, very easily make a level 1 character who cannot carry their starting equipment without being
absolutely.
encumbered, and that's
You get
why
a
it just
negative
starts to get
strength.
like this is stupid. Like,
Right.
and I mean, yeah, there's ways to overcome that, right? Well, we're just gonna buy a mule, and everyone puts their pack on the mule, and that can be fun, and if that's what you want to do to fix it, that's fine. But I just find it to be a lot easier to just be like, we're not going to worry about it. When you start to try and take 15 long swords, that's where I'm going to step in and say, okay, as I am the rules of the world, as I am the force of nature, I am saying physics say that can't happen. So figure out a way to make that make sense, and we're fine. But I like just kind of talking about encumbrance. I love the way that Starfinder does it, where rather than dealing with like the actual weight of things and how much weight you can carry, they just have like points of bulk, which you can carry up to us. Like it simplifies encumbrance so well to where it's actually easy to track and makes a lot of sense. But that's kind of neither here nor there. I don't have a good way to kind of bring that into 5e without redoing the entire system, which is just something that I don't care enough to do.
There's another thing that I normally do too, and it comes normally with survival. This is something that I'm actually going to start experimenting with only a little bit. Like normally, like you're going to be able to, like, a character's passives are going to be able to have enough food for themselves. They can spend a couple copper here or there and not really care about their gold. One of the things I'm going to start doing though is, depending on where you're at, like with my next part of my arc in my story, they're going to be under the mountain, or as John says, the Underdark. But it's not under the mountain. Is that, like I want them, I'm going to have them keep track of certain things from a survival standpoint, because they're not in the city. They're not in the woods. They're under a mountain. So what are they going to do? So I'm going to probably experiment with that. That's a kind of a house rule thing for me, is like, I don't normally track your survival rations. Again, a lot of things, like when I house rule things, is more like, I don't want to micromanage you. Please manage yourself.
Right.
I have to manage this whole world. My favorite thing a player says to me is like, God, I had to run 2 characters tonight. That's hard. Come on, man.
Right.
Come on, man. I am every NPC. I am every bad guy. I have 5 different voices I'm probably using for this one session. Please tell me how hard it is for you to play your 2 characters. I give you a little shit about that, but that's just me. Like, and that's something I want to experiment with, is just a little bit of house rule on that. Is depending on where you're at. If you're in the desert, does it not make sense that you gotta watch your water level, or you're gonna start suffering from exhaustion? If you're in a blizzard environment, do you have the right clothes? If you're in a regular semi-decent temperature, I think I could care less. But there is going to come a point where, depending on where you're at, you need to, and just because you don't have the survival skill doesn't mean you still can make those unplanned checks in this case as well.
Yeah, and I'll say there's some of that does exist in the Dungeon Master's Guide. It's not very deep, but it's kind of like a good starting point and whatnot, and then just kind of go from there. Every time I've done something like that, to where you're on top of a mountain in the cold and whatnot, I've gone to the DMG to see what it talks about for cold weather and extreme altitude, and then kind of gone on top of that for to make things make a little bit more sense. Yeah, I think tracking rations and that sort of thing can certainly be cumbersome, but sometimes it can make sense and be fun. I think especially at low levels, it can work pretty well. Once you get high enough, once you get high enough to have create food and water spells, then who cares? We're just done.
Matter, yeah.
But especially at lower levels, it can be a lot of fun. We did it in Outlaws. I think it worked well.
I loved that. I loved going using my passive skills to provide food, because my character's
especially as a ranger, that probably made you feel
you're using it
useful.
Very useful. Yeah, very useful.
Yeah,
I love that kind of stuff.
I like that. I think that's. I think there are a lot of areas like that. Crafting is one that comes to mind, or just kind of any use of any of the artisan tools and whatnot. There's some rules finally in Xanathars that kind of make use of it, but it's really not great. Downtime in crafting and artisan tools. There's really not a whole lot of great solutions in the actual published material for them, and I think that's a great space to either find somebody else's third-party content or just kind of make your own. I've got like a whole document for how to do downtime and crafting and stuff that I've found fun. So I think those situations where the Dungeon Master Guide and other tools are like incredibly vague are great ways to kind of implement some house rules. And then the other big place to implement house rules obviously is combat, which we actually haven't talked a ton about. We've talked about the casting spells as a or casting 2 spells in a turn. We've talked about the whole bonus action to drink a potion thing. Can you think of any other like combat house rules that you use?
Sometimes talking, like I will let somebody like, you're not going to be able to have a whole blown conversation, but it only makes sense if you're a rogue and you're down the hall and you get caught and you start and you're like, help, you get that free action of.
Yeah, I know that the rules do kind of allow for a little bit of interaction, but I think we both kind of like expand that a little bit more to allow just kind of allow things to make sense in the flow of combat for the party to communicate better. I think
it's one of those too that where like when you're talking as a bad guy and as a player and you guys are baiting each other, where the time goes back to normal. You're not in that 6 seconds. You're in the flow of reality. So that's one of those things. Like if it's story centric, I normally try to roll with it.
Along those lines, another thing that I use, and you do this too, is according to rules as written, I believe is a full action in order to make an ability check on your turn. So to make a perception check or deception or insight or anything is a full action. I'm almost positive. And it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I normally just like let them do whatever they want to. I think, and I saw a YouTube video where somebody does this, and I think I want to start using it, is allowing on anyone's turn they can make a single ability check for free, basically, if there's something that they want to do. And that way, because I like to do a whole lot of hiding the names of monsters now, partly because I have players who have played for, some of my players anyway, who have played for a while, and if the name is there, they know what it is. By the picture, they can maybe figure it out, but aren't necessarily 100% sure.
Not as quick.
So if the name is hidden, then there's a little bit less meta knowledge, which is fun. It's fun for everyone. Or some of the other reasons too are some of the new players that I have. They legitimately have no idea what it is, so it's really kind of fun to hide that from them. They have no idea that what they just fought is called an Umber Hulk, and they might find that out later on down the line. But either way, it then kind of forces the player to, if they care about it, have their character try and see if they can figure out what that creature was. And right now, the issue is that is only ever happening after combat, and I think it could be a lot of fun if players start trying to do that in combat, right? Especially for a creature like an Umber Hulk. So an Umber Hulk has an ability to where if you look at it, it's got like this weird thing with its eyes to where it forces you to like make a wisdom save, I think, or else lose your turn. So
it's like a hunter, like they're underground predators. So
yeah.
It's almost like a paralyzation effect, even if it's short term, which it can really be irksome as a player, but you got to think of it from a monster's perspective. That thing is trying to eat you.
Right, and then but that's the thing too, though. If like a player knows that they are allowed to make a nature check during their turn for free to try and figure out what this creature is and what this weird effect is, then that would be a lot of fun, and then they could share that information with the rest of the party, so on and so forth. So that's one that I kind of use, but want to implement a little bit more of like a hard and fast. like you can use one ability check on your turn for free, sort of thing.
Oh, you know what? I just thought of something that I do that I don't, you do it sometimes, but I feel like I do it a lot more when it comes to downtime. Occasionally, and unfortunately, I've even had, like in some of my newer players in my other games, Mutt kind of gave them the secret, is if you, during your downtime, if you tell a good enough story about what you're doing at that time, you could either possibly earn a feat, you could possibly earn like a point towards your your stats, things like that. So like I really like doing that because if a person is creative, they're telling me a story that they're like, because let's be honest, the world's not always burning. And when you get, like, say you get 6 months of downtime, your characters may split up for a little bit. Well, I wanted to learn from a swords master. Did I find one? Yeah, you got one in your hometown. Well, I worked tirelessly for 6 months trying to perfect this new technique. All right, so what can you tell me what the technique is? Blah, 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 blah. Okay, well, after 6 months of training, you find that your constitution is improved because you had to exercise a lot.
Yeah.
So you might get a point there. Or if you didn't quite get it, like I'll make you make some checks, of course. If you got it, maybe you learned that feat. If not, you may have to wait for it next time. But I try to reward like really good storytelling and stuff like that because like I try to, like, I know I like to move my stories along, but I also like to give the characters time to develop themselves. So like, what are you doing during that time? Are you searching for something? Are you trying to find, because we can use that maybe for an adventure.
Yep,
Let the players contribute. So I think that's a unique house rule that I like to do. Like, and you got the kind of a similar thing where you do like the point system. I think.
Yeah, I've got I've got this whole downtime document with a number of different things that you can do, and then even at the end of the document it says if none of these sound fun, like just talk to me, we'll figure something out. I don't know that my players always look at that.
I mean, I'll be honest, I'm ADD to the max, so I don't always.
Yeah.
Like, I try my best. I'll admit I'm probably that player who's like, sometimes, like, when I'm in the moment, I'm with you.
Yeah.
But sometimes I get very distracted.
But the whole point of it is just for different ideas of things to do, right? Do you want to and just like go and blow off some steam and have some fun? Well, maybe you gamble and make some money. Maybe you end up coming across a certain contact who could come in handy down the road. Do you want to use one of your proficiencies with like Smith's tools to make some items, or your herbalism kit to make some items and try and sell them? Do you want to, those are just some ideas. But one of the things in there is training. Do you want to spend a certain amount of time training? And with that, I do use this 10-point scale. Thank you for the bits, James. I do use a 10-point scale, and depending on, like, for instance, if you want to train in acrobatics and you want to gain proficiency in acrobatics, you will have to spend some money because you have to, invest in your training. But then at the end of a week, you will go ahead and roll an acrobatics check, and depending on what you roll there, you will earn anywhere from 1 to like 5 points on a 10-point scale towards gaining that proficiency. So yeah, and I make sure the players definitely keep track of that because that ain't my job. And then at some point, you'll probably earn proficiency in that, or you can try and increase an ability score, or whatever. So yeah, I definitely use that too. I've got some rules down for that. We are over halfway through, so we're gonna go ahead and take a break here. We're going to go ahead and go away for about 3 minutes. And when we come back, we've got some questions in our Discord we'll go over, as well as a couple ideas for other house rules that we'll kind of maybe get to critique a little bit there as well. If you have any questions and you're watching live, you can drop them right here live in chat, or any other house rule ideas, you can do that as well. And we'll try and get to those. But we will be back in about 3 minutes. See you.
I feel good in my soul. Welcome back to the cast. We answer your questions at last. Yeah, man. I'm a poet. And I freaking know it. Well,
yeah. So there's that.
You know, that's part of the fun of being random, is doing random things and just being who you are.
Saying random nonsense.
Oh, hell yeah, I love it. It's fun.
Yeah, always. Hello again, everyone. We are back. We are back with the second half of the Flycast. We actually went pretty long there in the front end. I think we've got some questions here in Discord that we're going to go over. Again, if you guys, anybody watching live, if you have any questions or any house rule ideas to talk about, you can go ahead and throw them there in chat. We've got some from our Discord here. If you're not a part of the Discord, by the way, go ahead and join it. There should be a link, whether you're watching live or on the podcast. In Apple Podcasts or Spotify or on YouTube. There should be a link somewhere. Join the Discord. That way you can leave questions, figure out our new topic for the next week,
Please.
See what else we're doing, all that fun stuff. But we're going to go over that, what we've got already. Honestly, this is a really cool topic that we've had a lot of fun talking about on the front end. And honestly, I feel like there's so many more house rules that we either use or have talked about or seen or whatever that we just haven't gotten a chance to discuss.
There's a lot more than and we were talking about this during the break. There's a lot more that I use that I don't realize that I use, because I was telling John, it's like I'm in the moment, so I don't necessarily realize that I'm house ruling something per se. And then it just becomes like a standard. So I'm like,
yeah. So I think we might have to do like a part 2 to this at some point. But
right.
This is anyway, we've been talking about house rules. In case you didn't know that, somehow got through half of this without knowing. That's what we've been talking about. We're going to go ahead and go to our Discord and take our questions now, before I just continue to speak about nonsense. Questions. We've got a few from Mutt here. We'll kind of go over. First thing, how do you handle house rules as far as informing your players that you have a house rule? Like, do you like to make
normally
that
in the beginning?
Yeah, that's basically what I was going to ask. That's what I would do too. It's
kind of hard to change something mid-campaign.
Yeah,
you know.
We have a decent amount of players that we've been playing with for a while and kind of know some of the standard house rules we use, such as like the bonus action potion, that sort of thing. But especially if I'm going to have a new player, or if there's a new thing that I want to try, you got to make it known at the beginning of the campaign.
Right.
Sometimes there are things that I want to try, and we're in the middle of a campaign, and you try and throw them in there, but I just don't think that works as well. Like, there are some ideas that I've heard of and kind of want to try right now. Like, I've been trying to figure out a good solution to standing up from prone for a while, and just haven't really come up with anything I like, because the rule as written is just terrible. But I just haven't come up with anything that I like all that much. But whenever I do, I'll introduce it at the start of a campaign, not halfway through. The way that I'm doing experience versus milestone, I'll decide that at the beginning of a campaign, and you can't really change that in the middle very well.
See, I'm actually considering going to milestone like after level 5 of my campaign. I was because I want to slow it down if I can a little bit, because that world is so freaking huge.
That's the thing too. Like, you can do that at a certain point, right? Like, if you've hit that level 5 milestone, and now you kind of want to change things. I don't know. But yeah, I would agree. Really normally hard. At the beginning of a campaign, you is when you kind of set those. But you have to, like a lot of things we've talked about, you have to communicate well and clearly set the expectation. So if you use a flanking rule, you really need to say that at the beginning of the campaign and let the party know. If you have a bonus or a bonus action potion rule, or if you have a house rule that says that you cannot multi-class, like all these things should really be set at the beginning of the campaign.
I do that because if I have a race restriction for a reason, like depending on the
Right.
world, the setup, the story, like there's been times I've had to have race restrictions,
Yeah.
and that was a house rule at that point.
Right.
And like depending on the points of the story, if somebody lost a character, that may change.
Right.
You know, depending. But like if like I remember James came into one of my campaigns like I want to be a goblin. I'm like, with this
Just
particular
doesn't make sense for
story,
this. Yeah.
it won't fit. You'll
Yeah.
be hunted ridiculously. So, but like Ebrion, no problem. But yeah, like I'm a little bit more loose with that campaign. But like if I have some hard, fast rules, I normally like to get them out of the way in the beginning. Like one of the ones you used to use for us was like you cannot be like I think it's changed a little bit, but we couldn't be an evil character. Like I think that might have changed a little bit. But I think the preface of that was this is a heroic story, and if you're an evil character and you're trying to cuck the party, you know that's not going to be fun.
Yeah, I that rule exists in the Wine Women Adventure Tour because that is a heroic story. It depends on the campaign that I'm running for sure, and also the players that I have. Right, so like Steve, I would trust you to be able to maturely play an evil character. I would certainly allow Megan to, although she would never do it.
Yeah, I don't think that's really her MO. She seems to be like kind of lawful. I don't know.
Yeah, she can play neutral, but like evil, she just couldn't.
Yeah, I don't see her doing that.
Well.
Now, dude, if I get the chance to play Gareth again, you better believe I would do it because I'm like.
That said, James, if you're still listening, I will not allow you to play an evil character.
He seems like the kind of fella that might cuck the party or something. I don't know.
Yes.
Just
playing a lawful good
character,
he still might burn down the tavern. You know, like.
I've seen that with him. He's made like, and that's nothing against him. I mean, that's just his play style.
It's just the way he plays.
Chaotic as a person.
Yeah.
You know, and that's just him. So like, you there's a house rule, James. You can't be an evil character. You're a son of a bitch.
Right. Next question: why do you make house rules?
For fun and balance.
Yeah, I think there's it can be kind of multiple different reasons. I think the main reason is for fun. Maybe it's to balance some things. Also, it can just be like to make things make more sense, right?
Right.
You know, thinking along the lines of like a flanking rule. So rules as written, there's no such thing as flanking. Does that make any sense? No. The optional flanking rule is that someone gets advantage if they're flanking. Maybe that makes sense, but that's super strong.
That's very strong.
So for a balance reason, it's really hard to allow that. I don't normally do it. So my flanking rule is a +2. It's the same thing as I think Pathfinder uses. I think they use a +2. And I know 5e wanted to get away from all these random plus numbers, but it's not that hard to remember a +2. If everything that you do has a different thing associated with it, that's why they went to advantage, disadvantage. It's just a lot easier.
Right.
Then it gets rough. But just one rule that gives you a +2 on flanking, like it's enough of a bonus to where it encourages people to do that, but not so much to where it's just overwhelming. Come on, let me be evil. Chaos is the best neutralizer.
I'm not paying attention to chat.
Thanks for the bits, buddy. So yeah, I mean, number one for fun, but then also for balance and to make things make sense, all work as well. That's why I'm trying to come up with a good idea for coming up from prone to make it make more sense and be more fun. Because knocking someone prone in the middle of a fight should be more of a detriment than just I stand right back up at the start of my turn. Come on, there should be something else going on.
The only reason why I don't do flanking as a rule is because I'll be honest, I'll probably forget, and then when I remember, and let's be honest, I'll remember at the most opportune time for myself and not you. So if I go, oh yeah, my creatures
Well,
can
and
flank you.
that kind of comes in with the next one that Mutt had here. He was asking if do you, when you make a house rule, do you tend to make them to favor the players, or have you ever made one that like favors the DM more, basically? And it's really interesting because one like flanking, the players love it because they get a little extra bonus. But to be honest, that one honestly probably favors the monsters more, because in a fight where you have 4 party members and 10 gnolls, the gnolls can flank you a lot better than you can flank them. That said, the party normally doesn't look at it that way. So while that one technically probably favors the DM more, the players have more fun with it. So, like, to answer that question, I would say I normally make rules that are more fun for the players, whether they favor them or not. That's kind of how I would say that.
I can't think of a time that I've made something that was a lowest for me. Maybe it's just because of how I approach things, but normally when I approach something, it's normally from a fun standpoint for the player. Because like when you guys are having fun, I'm having fun.
Exactly.
So like it's nice to see like you guys do something cool and something like that. So I'll do that for like magic items of sometimes. Like I made one specifically for Tracy because you guys didn't have a cleric, and I took away the requirement for paladin cleric on that thing to give that character some more spell slots. Not knowing that Hadrian was going to roll a cleric, so I was like, "Oh, surprise!" But I'm not going to undo all that work for. I was a little salty, but I was like, you know what? Yeah, now we have a cleric. I was like, normally, like I wanted him to play it. He did play it. He didn't like it. To be fair, most of the party didn't like that character anyway, so it works out.
Yeah. I mean, I have made, generally, if I make a house rule, it's so that it's more fun for the players. Sometimes, though, it's just to make things make more sense. And I have made some that are technically detrimental to the player. Like I don't do this all the time, but a lot of times, like I'll make certain. You'll have to be proficient in a skill in order to use it, especially when we're talking about something like Arcana or History or Nature, right? Like if you're staring at this statue of a goddess and trying to figure out who it is of an ancient deity, and the cleric who's trained in religion can't figure it out with their role, but the barbarian who doesn't know the name of their own deity rolls a natural 20 and figures it, like, that's just stupid. So that might technically be detrimental to the party, but it just doesn't make any sense. So if I make something that's detrimental to the party, there's a reason for it. More often than not, though, it's going to be favoring them. As far as suggestions for actually, I've got one more question, I think, here. What is the most recent addition to your house rules that you know of? Like, do you have a house rule that you've just recently started using? I know you've talked about ones that you're thinking about implementing in the future, but anything?
No, like, I'm getting ready to, like, I don't even know if it's a house rule. I think it's more like, we're in this area, we're going to experiment with it, we're going to do, like, some survival stuff, because now we actually have a cleric who has survival. But I would have let the other players make like untrained and like maybe try to like maybe even do something similar to you to gain that skill. Like you guys have been here for a little bit of time. But I think the most recent house rule that I've implemented was probably during the downtime. That seems like it was forever ago. That we talk about what you do. You can either message me on Discord as we do the role, or then we do our role plays, and then if it makes sense, we'll figure something out to reward that story that you're bringing. Because like I'm big into the content, especially since we do so much streaming, and I feel like the story, the action is fun for a player. For a viewer, though, sometimes the role play is more, because like my niece was like the other night, as an example, I had her check out the Flycast channel we did on Tuesday, because I'm trying to get back into running games. And I was like, there's a lot of role play. I don't know if that's something you're interested in. She's like, oh, I loved it. I loved that they were sitting around a campfire,
Nice,
just explaining their stuff, because I didn't know who these people were. Now I'm starting to figure out. And I'm like, okay. And that, for me, from a little girl standpoint, also told me that I need to I need to step back with this party and remember that these characters want to get to know each other now. They want to have those deep conversations. Let me step back, save my voice, and let
Right.
them tell the story. So those are some of the things that I'm trying to do. Maybe not as much house ruley, but
Yeah.
that's the most recent.
I can't really think of what the most recent thing I've implemented is. I one of the things I come back to, and this isn't that recent, but as far as like actually having a system worked out and real rules for it, the thing that I keep coming back to is that like downtime system, or like the skill system, the learning a skill system that I have of this 10-point scale, and inching towards it, because I never had a good way of doing that before, and I think that's working very well. I, and I've had that for probably about a year now, maybe more, but that's something I can think of off the top of my head anyway. We are nearly out of time, but I want to kind of hit real quick, rapid fire some of these house rule ideas. We got one from Mutt about the potion drinking thing. So, rules as written, drinking a potion is a full action. Both Steve and I normally rule it to be a bonus action. He suggested a hybrid approach where you can use your full action to drink the whole bottle, or you can use a bonus action to just take like a quick swig. If you're drinking a health potion, you essentially like get half of the potion or something like that.
I remember him saying that before, and I know I was interested in it, but I totally spaced it.
Yeah, what do you think about that?
I like it. I mean, I don't know if, but again, I don't want to like say the only negative about it is like and this is just me thinking as a player. Again, I don't want to because I never use healing potions as a top off. Okay, this is just me as a player and as a DM. Like, my daughter did this the other day, and I was trying to dissuade her from doing it, but at the same time, not trying to, tell her how to play the game. Is at the end of their combat, they had one healing potion that they got from the bartender, and she took some cracks, man. Because let's be honest, I'm probably the guy who's going to go after my own kid and try to, pow pow. I'm like, I'm gonna smack you down. I ain't gonna play no favorites. But she was hurt they burnt a spell slot. Instead of taking the short rest, or attempting to take the short rest, they burnt a level 1 spell slot from the level 3 ranger and a healing potion. When they rolled the healing potion, it didn't do that much.
Right.
So I think there was a valuable lesson there. But for me, it was like, if I have to use the whole action, if I'm desperate to get those hit points, again, as a player, I'm going to be like, ugh. I do like that like maybe using a part of the potion as a bonus action, like if you're trying to top yourself off, but I'm just a big believer is that healing potion is for emergencies only. You're getting ready to be unconscious, you're bleeding out. That's just me.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to use them in similar ways. I think so. I don't dislike this rule. I think it could be fun to try and use it.
Fun, yeah.
I would not. I don't think that I like the balance that I found in my games. I think it encourages players to be able to use their potions in combat more, as opposed to using them out of combat. Which I mean, it's more fun to be able to do more stuff in combat, right? Plus, it can be obnoxious tracking half a health potion. That said, it could work. I like what I have come up with better. But that's just me.
Well, I mean, that would be more encouragement for him to run his own game sometime and
try it.
Then try that himself.
Totally agree.
Because I think that would be a good incentive.
Billy has talked about how some people play with a house rule that nat 20 is auto success no matter what. Rules as written, a natural 20 is only an auto success on an attack roll, and a natural 1 is only an auto fail on an attack roll. A natural 20 on an ability check or saving throw is not an auto success, nor is a nat 1 an auto fail. Billy says he normally likes to make people who roll a nat 1 basically roll critical on a critical fail chart, more or less. The nat 20 being an auto success on anything and a nat 1 being an auto fail on anything, you know, I don't love it. I understand why, because it makes it more gamey, and if you like the role-playing game aspect the most, then of course you're going to love that role. And if you have a group of players who are more interested in rolling dice and doing damage and that sort of thing, then sure, maybe that's fun. For me, I wouldn't say that I prefer the role playing aspect over the game aspect. I think I'm pretty balanced in that. I could be wrong, but to me, because I do value the role playing aspect and the what makes sense and making the world work well, especially because I'm such a world builder, I do not like the idea of a nat 20 always being a success, right? Like, if you guys are staring down a deity and he casts a spell and the saving throw DC is 30, then the saving throw DC is 30. I don't care if you roll a natural 20 and it makes it a 25. You fail. So that's why I don't love it. But yeah, it just depends on what kind of game you're running.
Right. If you're wanting super story centric and not having any as much combat, I guess that makes sense. But I can't do it just because, again, the same thing that you're saying is if it's a certain situation, like you're talking to a king. Let's just go role play. Mm-hmm. You're talking to a king. You're trying to convince him to go to battle with like a neighboring kingdom, and that's difficult. You know, the DC would be at a minimum of 25. You got a charisma of 8. But you roll a natural 20. No, you're not going to succeed there. And and the reason why is because you're not posing a good enough argument. Because, trying to get a whole kingdom to go to battle for some reason, because we all know I like my big battles.
Right.
But you're trying to propose that, or you're trying to get him to give you resources for something. There needs to be a curve there, of consequence. Good consequence and bad consequence. And if you're just automatically, and I guess that goes for a natural 1 as well. If you're a rogue and you're trying to sneak around, but you have that one thing in there that lets you roll a 10 on ability checks on certain ones, then I don't want to punish that rogue either. I really look at it from those perspectives of the world is, will it make sense?
Yeah.
I roll a natural 20, that king should automatically go to war for me. Okay, no, it does not make sense. You what clout do you have as a player? Have your deeds been sung by the bards? Are you a noble?
Right.
Are you in politics? No. So get the fuck out.
Right. It's kind of bringing it into our world, can you, just a random nobody, go convince the most powerful people in the world to do whatever you want to? Yeah, no, that's not going to happen. So, I agree. What do you think about critical success and critical fumble tables? Like, if you roll a critical success, you roll on this table to see what extra happens. Yeah,
they're cheesy to me. I know Adrian experimented with them for a while, and he really likes them. But to me, it's just it's cheesy to me because especially if we critically fail and you're in the heat of a battle and your magic bow that you depend on, you snap a string.
Yeah.
I mean, as a player, how shitty is that?
Right.
First of all, that magic bow has a magic bow string. It's not going to snap. But I've seen that happen.
Right.
And if you're trying to do something from a fun perspective, unless those players are down with that as well.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a similar argument. Are you more focused on the game aspect? And if so, then maybe you do like those tables a lot more. But I'm with you for the most part. I think, especially the critical fumble tables, kind of we got in chat here. When you roll a crit fail, you already feel like shit. So why add insult to injury?
Why
now,
punish yourself more? Yeah.
What I do is sometimes I will, like, if the situation is right, I will add just kind of a little extra thing to either a crit success or a crit fail, of like, oh man, like, you just keep failing, and this battle is over anyway, it's not a big deal, so the sword slips from your hand, and it's funny, and everyone has a big laugh, and the battle's over in 13 seconds anyway, so it doesn't matter. What I don't like, though, is if you then, like, are in the middle of a tense situation and the same thing happens, right? So like, I'll pick and choose my spots. Sometimes I will just for the lulz or just because it's fun, or the story is just kind of heading that way, just kind of throw a little thing in there, and do the same thing to the enemies too, right? Like, oh man, this guy can't roll at all. He rolled a natural 1. He sticks his head in the ground. Like, like, I'll do that sometimes, like that, fun stuff. Fine. But yeah, as far as kind of like that full on crit table type idea, I just don't love it. And especially when it's like hurting the party too. And again, on top of just it might not necessarily be the most fun thing. It's also like more time consuming. Online, it's not that big a deal because you click a button on a table, but like, especially if you're at the table, it's like, oh, I rolled a natural 20. Now let me go ahead and roll to determine what this table says happens also. Exactly. And then let me find that and decide what that is. Oh, it says I roll another 4d6 damage. And if I roll above a certain threshold, his head pops off. Like, oh my goodness, like, when does it end? Like, let's go. Combat can take a while as it is. We don't need to add stuff to it. So that's how I feel about it. Again, if you love the game side, though, maybe it's a lot of fun for you.
It's all about balance.
That is pretty much what we got, though. So those were the questions we had, the house rule ideas we had in chat. We should totally do another episode of this. I don't know if we'll do that next week or not, but we should totally do another episode of this, get some more house rule ideas, some more questions, and do that. But that is what we got for today. So thank you guys so much for hanging out with us.
Yeah, thank you.
We stream off and on 2 different channels here. Steve, are you planning on playing tonight at all, or no? Or do you know?
Yeah, I'm gonna probably take like a half-hour break. I'm gonna shoot some things, talk to people. Normally I shoot things to relax. I know that sounds weird, but I'll probably shoot some stuff and relax. Probably talk some D&D because I'm excited about talking about my daughter and her experience because I really enjoyed that. So as a dad.
Yeah. So he streams over at twitch.tv/Stevo the DMO. Normally he will stream Wednesdays after the Flycast at some point, but also just kind of off and on. He's been on a Destiny kick for quite a while. Sometimes plays some retro games and does D&D prep over there as well. Is your Sunday game starting up again, or?
I'm going to be working with Tracy because she's not in that game. I'm going to have her help me do some world building because with that group, I tried to give them an open world concept to try to do my planning around it, and I froze them in place. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to really build some story. I'm going to have to actually build the world more instead of just a few cities. So of course, that's my weak spot. So I'm going to be workshopping with her. And trying to take some stuff from the original story then I guess I'm going to have to railroad them. So hopefully we can get that started up soon.
That can happen and help out too if you ever need. But hopefully that'll be starting up on Sundays sometime soon here. And then over here on the Fly Captain Twitch channel, tomorrow night I have my Thursday night game. Happens every other week on Thursdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. They just killed a bunch of werewolves, and don't tell anyone, but they're about to be visited by Demon Lord. So that'll be fun.
Oh, shit.
What?
It's a lot of fun.
Megan just walked in and is like, what's happening?
But, oh, boy.
It'll be a lot of fun. Just kind of, we're going to be more or less kicking off kind of a grand arc. We're finishing up kind of the intro arc and then kicking off a grand arc, which would be a lot of fun. I've got some pretty nasty surprises in store. I think I'm going to have to make sure, because some of them are players that I haven't played with a whole lot yet, so I'm gonna need to make sure that they know to trust me, because there's going to be something that happens that could erode trust, but they just need to hang in there for a minute. So it should be a lot of fun. And then we do have, hey, Steve, this is your reminder. We do have the Wine Women Adventure Tour this Sunday as well.
It's Sunday, I remember.
So 1 p.m. Eastern here on Fly Captain Twitch channel on Sunday, we'll be kicking off there. The party's currently in the Underdark. Some demonic, crazy nonsense is happening there, too. So it should be a lot of fun. We should actually be kind of ending that, the Underdark arc, or at least the current Underdark arc, on Sunday too. And then of course then back on Tuesday, every other week, we're doing Steve's game, the Eberron game. So Tuesday we'll be back here as well, 8 p.m. Wait, is that what time we play?
I think so. Yeah,
8 p.m. Eastern, over here on Fly Captain Twitch. I play a robot, so that'll be fun. And then of course back here next week. Nice. So, thank you guys so much for hanging out with us once again. Likes and subscribes and whatnot, depending on what platform you're watching / listening to. Certainly join the Discord. You'll be notified whenever I go live on the Discord, and Steve has his Discord as well that he normally lets people know when he goes live because he's off and on over there. But thanks so much for hanging out with us, and we will see you hopefully tomorrow night. Peace out.